Clay is like an earthen pot, in the hands of a great potter. Clay returns to clay. Arise in the land of the living. Yakubibanabantu production.
Yakubibanabantu, mutoto wa kibantu, bana muntu. Bana muntu.
KEMBO na TATA NZAMBI, MPUNGU TULENDO, YAMAZULU, NINI na NINI SOMANDLA, NGAI, MURUNGU, MWENE, NYAGA. Depending on where you are, I greet you. Nusiemi betoa bumbote bana bayi soleni. Moloeni abantuana abangone. Moriega shiana shiangai na kenda moyo. Mpo salama watoto wa Mungu. Yes, it's that time we sit and rightly divide the word of truth. For the ngolo, by the ngolo for the KEMBO of TATA na NZAMBI, MPUNGU TULENDO, yes, the Father and those that sleep, all the righteous ancestors of Abantuana Abangon, a people who have been in slavery for longer than we choose to remember. When I came into this truth, well, I tell you, there was a lot of information pouring out. Every corner, a new piece of information is the one I'm about to share with you, my people, by his ngolo, for his KEMBO. Panabeto, in the past shows, we did look at we compared the pharaonic skirt to the attire, to the ceremonial attire worn by the Agekoyo. If you can see, and the Tigania warriors, there's a similarity, but hold that thought, Banabeto. What if it's just a similarity? What if they just copied? So we are going to make the connection, alluding biblically, historically, and then you're going to decide for yourself, Banabeto, who's fooling who. Usually a Kikuyu woman was not allowed to show her thighs. How do I know? Because I've been studying the culture. It is my culture. But it seems there were occasions when these particular attires were worn. And I go back to the very beginning with the house of Mumbi. The Kikuyu do not have a tradition of the migration from Egypt. Their myth of origin is a sort of Adam and Eve affair. It states that NGAI created a man and a woman and placed them near Mount Kenya. The couple had 9 daughters who miraculously received 9 men. We shared that story of how Gikoyo went atop the mountain as instructed by NGAI and gave his sacrifices and his prayer. The Kikuyu call themselves the house of Mumbi in honor of this mother who was the potter. You see, we have been talking of the masculine and the feminine spirit. For those of you who have come from the Hebrew roots camp, you know of something we used to call Sophia, wisdom. See, the creator is masculine, but the wisdom of his creation manifests as masculine, feminine. And that is why the Agekoyo are not a patrilineal society. They give homage to the women, just as those in Kingipiti. The woman amongst the Bantu is not looked down upon as foreign doctrine would have you think. Because from a woman does life come into this existence. But we proceed. Mumbi also means potter. Yes, Jeremiah, go to the potter's house. Why so much allegory to the potter? You decide, Banabeto. However, as I will show, there are linguistic comparative between the Agikoyo and the 8th dynasty of King Gipiti of Egypt. And you will see that, well, you'll just see, Banabeto. Who are the Kikuyu? The Kikuyu are classified linguistically as a Highland Bantu together with the Kamba, the Kuria, and the Gusi, the Embu, the Luya, the Raka, the Meru of Kenya. And this is due to their common origins and common phonology. The other Highland Bantus in Eastern Africa are Meru, in Tanzania, yes, the Segeju, the Sonjo, the Ikoma, the Chaga, the Ngweno, the Sashi, Zanaki, Guriumi, all of Tanzania. And they are all of the Benu Congo language division of the Niga Congo family. In particular, the Chaga have an explored affinity with the Kikuyu. You see, two different countries, borders created by the white man, but they have similarities and a deep affinity. And I'll demonstrate how. According to traditions, the Edaga, which is a clan amongst the Agikoyo. Now, you have to remove this conception that the Agikoyo is just that tribe living on the base of Mount Kenya, because that is not even their identity. which I will prove shortly. The Adaga, a clan of the Kikuyu, represent the Chaga in Tanzania. The Kikuyu or proper or Karenga has 3 subclasses. Those are the Gaki, you find them in Nyeri, Metumi, those of Moranga, and Kabete, those of Kafete, Metumi, and Gaki, Raki, who are, and the Kabete are the Kiambu Kikuyu. We use the term Kikuyu because as the anglicized, when we talk of Angli, you see there's the Anglo, Mundele influence. From the original Gekoyo, which means belonging to this. The word Kikuyu has gained, a lot of academic use, and which it's not even a language, but the name of the patriarch. All Bantu cultures do talk of the patriarch. When we talk of the sons of Nguni, they will talk of Munguni. When you go to the East, they all have a progenitor, but there's one similarity you have to understand. If you check the community page, I did a post, how we lost the languages. That explains that it's just a dispersion that has allowed for it to seem like they're different characters, but in essence, they are alluding to the same person, to the same history, to the same sequence of events, only that the dispersion and the way this oral culture has been transmitted from generation to generation, you find that as a result of cognitive dissonance and what I call a calcified pineal gland, you are unable to make the connection. So I'm hoping that we make the connection here in a way that you can understand Banaveto. I see these things, but I repackage them that you may see them so that our people may be liberated. And this is why we keep on doing this. We proceed. But also Gikuyu refers to the patriarch, an ancestor, and referring to Ando, Bantu, those with humanity. The first written mention of Kikuyu in modern times was used by Ludwig Krapf, of course a missionary, when he made 2 journeys to Kambani in the 1840s. Before that, the Kikuyu had lived in isolation for more than 1,000 years. Mark this. With little interaction with the outside world. It is to be expected that some Kikuyu travelers did join their Akamba friends to and from the coast for trading expeditions. This explains why the Agikoyo, despite this isolation, because you would ask, if they were isolated for 1,000 years, then how come they were so in tandem? Despite their isolation, did not lag behind in incorporating new crops into their agriculture. Examples of these crops were cassava, maize, and tobacco, which were unknown outside the Americas before the Spanish conquest. And they say they brought civilization to Africa, shame on them. And subsequent Portuguese presence at the East African coast. So where did the Gikuyu come from? Why so much fuss about this word, the Agikoyo? Well, in my understanding, I've come to know that myths cannot be entirely relied on for historical accuracy. However, they do carry fragments of truth, and a lot of it, which are important to the keen observer. Again, those with the decalcified pineal gland. We've been ranting about this. Cognitive dissonance will not allow you to see what I am saying. So if you're getting this, get in touch. Huh? The myth of Gikoyo and Mumbi, the father and mother, though to me it's not a myth, but I use myth for understanding and for dissemination of this information. Of all, the Gikoyo is the most reliable of the legends told by the Kikuyu about their origins. From my comparative studies, Panabeto, I have deduced that the nucleus of the so-called people Kikuyu came from the ancient land of Kingipiti. Egypt, during the reign of Pharaoh Ahkenaten, in the time of who the Bible alludes to as Joseph. They used the root of Kush, Ethiopia. Remember, the whole land was referred to as KAETOPIA, not what we know as the country. What we know as the country, as far as the Sudan, going up, that was North KAETOPIA or Kingipiti. Kush, the land of the Kushites. They used the Ethiopia route to get to Mount Kenya, Mount Sinai, THAAYU. I have explained this 1,000 times. The word THAAYU means peace, THAAYU, where there is peace. Sayuni, THAAYU, Zion, the morphology of the language. We have handled that. You can refer to post videos, and to save on time, I will not be going into that. According to evidence from power handling over ceremony, the Itweka, the same thing that we had, we are post 31st March of the second year in the Bantu calendar. I am making this video on the 10th day of the 8th month It took less than 40 years. Where have we had that figure? For the first group to get to the Mount Kenya region, from where, if they are taking the Ethiopian route, if they are taking the Kush, because we have the Nubian desert, which is in Kush, part of Kush, King Gipiti. They have left Egypt and they have gone south into the land of their fathers. We've already established that. We have nothing to do with the Negev. We're not looking at the north, we are looking at the south. But now we are trying to connect our history in a way that we're not left with question marks. Guidance from the ancestors, all the KEMBO to TATA na NZAMBI, YAMAZULU, Gai MURUNGU, MWENE NYAGA, Kirowata. It took less than 40 years for the first group, Banabeto, to reach the Mount Kenya region. It took others more than 100 years to join their king. This explains the variety of dialects. So the movement was in phases, including Meru, now a distinct language, yet still in the same cluster. During this migration, the Nyeri and Muranga Agekoyo were separated for 3 generations. 3 generations, that's 300 years. Which resulted in the last 3 ruling generations to have 2 different names. Once they had settled in the safety of the forest at the foot of the sacred mountain, the Kikuyu went to Great Plains to recraft their origins from the Kabiru, we've talked of that, the fighting Kabiru, Habiru, where they tried to coin the term Hebrew, and to ensure that intruders were kept at bay in a siege mentality that lasted over 1,000 years. I refer you to the story of Judith. And those that dwelled in the mountain. Those that the king would ask, who are those that dwell on the mountain? Those that could only be defeated on the 7th day, which they rested to observe it as a holy convocation to their quote-unquote deity. But he's not a deity. He's the one who was, is, and is to come, the Black King, the one who's to be looked upon as a jasper and a sardine stone. For 1,000 years. Observe these people, my kings and queens. For 1,000 years, they have kept that territory uninterfered with. 1600. Let's do the math. 1800s, appearance of the first missionary. You decide. I cannot force this information down your throat. I can only give it to you, Banabeto, for you to analyze. I tell you, do not take what I say for gospel truth. For even gospel truth in itself is not truth. But the truth has never needed defending. Research, find it. If you find any information contradictory to this, reach out, share it. I do not own the entire truth, but I perform the mission I have been given. Bye. We continue. Similarities in the languages. The Agikoyo say tene, tene muno, tene ni kwari, to mean long ago. Is this not the same tene, the suffix in Ahkenaten? This man Ahkenaten, let's pay attention to him. He's a pharaoh in Egypt, but let's pay attention to him. The Meru, who had the confederacy with the Agikoyo, say kare, to mean long ago. In Swahili, it would be kale, zama za kale. Is this not the suffix in Smenkare, who was the co-regent of King Ahkenaten? Hotep, my people, Hotep. The Kikuyu call a woman Motumia. And an olive tree, Motamayo, Motamayo. From the screen sharing, I think I'll try and highlight that from my notes. You can see the cursor. Motumia and Motamayo. Do these words have the same root as Mutemuya? Mutemwa, Ahkenaten's grandmother? We also know with certainty that the olive tree was sacred in ancient King Gibiti. We talk of the Babylonian system, but I'm talking of King Gibiti. King Gibiti ruled by those with the negroid nose, the nose that was taken off, and the lips, the negroid lips, the ones that were taken off. Now, remember I said Ahkenaten was in the time of Yusuf, or who you call Joseph. And this is, let's make the connection. Let's not jump the gun. Let's go slowly, Banaveto. Let's disseminate this information. Let's reason together, my kings and queens. The Hepsed, or the Jubilee Festival. Jubilee, 50, 40 years. Give or take. And if you're using the Gregorian calendar, the calendar of the Grigori, the fallen ones, I will still look at time according to the Agikoyo, because we are using everything that has been critical in this awakening, the questions. I hope to answer them today. Egyptologists suggest that the Egyptian Hepsed started soon after 3100 BC, when King Menes unified King Gibiti. It is likely that it was a much older tradition taken, listen to this, taken into account that King Menes came from the south. Go do your research, Bagabeto. I can't make this stuff up. His commemorative palette, called the palette of Nama, has two mythological long-necked animals. Ndamadhya, living in the Mathioya River, which has a sacred feather, the Maat. The justice. Why 10 laws when there are 42 negative affirmations? The Munguni tells us of Abantoana Abangone, those without sin. The Ma'at is a negative affirmation. I have not killed, I have not stolen, I have not slept with my neighbor's wife, I have not. You see, then the white man comes writes his 10 and tell you they came from Maza, Maat, Ma, the truth, who's fooling who is solely. But because of cognitive dissonance and a lot of Christianity, the only reference you want for your spirituality is the same book that your captor gave you. This is something I'll never understand. Yes, does the Bible have truth? It is our history. But the way it has been packaged, it has only been packaged in a way that it will still lead you to look at the Babylonian mythology in that scripture. And I proceed to break this down, Banabeto, and I forgive the passion because it pains me. It pains me when they're arrogantly ignorant talk of witchcraft, try to brand us all these names using the white man's tongue. You say those of us that practice Bantu spirituality are practicing witchcraft. We are necromancers. What do you know? You arrogantly ignorant. You only know what the white man has told you, and that is where your reasoning oscillates in the conditioning of the white man. That is why even when you come to the continent, those that have lived the culture, you want to tell them that, you see this book tells you how you should live your culture. My people. Where is the power in this book that we don't see? Those of you that have interacted with me personally know what I'm speaking about. Where does this information come from then? You talk of, what was that? Sometimes I even forget the nonsense I hear. Channeling spirits and conversing with the dead. Who told you they're dead? Because this is the reasoning I have to understand from Banabeto. You're there saying Bantus don't die. When you turn around, you're saying communing with your ancestors is talking to the dead. What's with the double standards? What is with the selective theology? What's with the cognitive dissonance? Calcification of the pineal gland, my people. Because the more I come into this understanding, the more silent I become. Because whatever information is being released, my people are not ready for. I tell you, it's throwing a wrench into the hammer, the truth. And all these teachers you see disseminating this truth, I tell you, they are doing what they're supposed to be doing, for they were born for a time like this. Because each and every son and daughter of Muntu has their level of understanding. And the spirit, the Mupeve Musantu, has to meet you at your level of understanding. And that is why Yakubi's teaching might not resonate with you, and so-and-so's teaching will resonate. But you think we're teaching something different. We're all headed in the same direction. That is why I'll never go against anybody's teachings. I'll never dispense anybody's teaching, because I was not there when they were called. It was not a conference call. TATA NZAMBI did not send a Zoom link to Yakubi. Please join in this meeting. I am calling Nabi Yanata Shilombo, or I am calling Nabi Mikael Masi, or I'm calling Nkosi Zona, I'm calling Johnny John, I'm calling Murigi Wanzambe. I honor them all. I honor them all because they are doing what they're supposed to be doing at this particular time. But you also have to appreciate, we have different levels to this journey. One of the greatest things I have come to learn from my senior and somebody I hold in high regard, Nabi Yanata Shilombo, is that humility comes before all. And I accept. Early into this awakening, I might have been a tad arrogant. But the more I get understanding, the more humble I become. And I have no time to war with your level of understanding. I disseminate this information. What you choose to do with it, Banabeto, is entirely up to you. But do not make your lack of understanding my burden. Do not make your level of understanding somebody else's burden. You're getting angry that your family members are stuck in Christianity. Just because you have come into a little truth. Who told you you have the entire truth? That you're there castigating others for disseminating, calling them witches and doing that. My people perish for lack of knowledge. Back to the headset. The triangular apron that was worn by Ahkenaten servants, I think we demonstrated that. It was also worn amongst the Agikoyo. And by Agikoyo, I'm talking of the proto-Bantu, because Mogekoyo means Mogekoryoyo. That one, the one endowed with wisdom that this. There is only one race endowed with wisdom above this, and that is Abantuana Abangone. I cannot make up the statistics. The average Black man intelligence quotient. Go do your research. I'm not trying to start a race war. The Agikuyu youth wearing the peculiar triangular apron used in Geshukia dance, the dance that shakes things up. The Kikuyu used a lunar calendar. And this predates the coming of the white man. Following the cycles of the moon, the new month, they therefore had 12 months. And that is why you cannot change the samba. We are not following, when we talk of the samba, Motuaroro, we are not following those Ahkenaten up there. No, it's because these are things that were preordained. If you follow the moon cycle, it will always fall on the 7th day. So whatever other calculations you have there, that's on you. Choose to believe what you want. I choose to believe what I have been shown, not by books, but by my ancestors, by the Ngolo, for the KEMBO of TATA and NZAMBI YAMAZULU, who my people call NGAI, MURUNGU, MWENE, NGAI wakire. Based on the activity of expected weather, we can therefore see that through the lunar month, they arrived at a year that was similar to the Egyptian year of 360 days, not 360 and a quarter, or that nonsense they tried to do, because they only did that because they wanted to try and delay time, but you cannot delay judgment, for judgment is not of you. It is of the one who was, is, and is to come. A group of youths, both male and female, initiated into adulthood in a specific year was given a name that reminded them of a major event in that year, such as famine, or the first time the aeroplane was sighted. Major events in the history of the Agikoyo in the past, beyond 1840s, have been forgotten. Remember the 1,000 years and before that? They tried to show us that these things happened a very long time ago. But this is what the Mindele does. He's the kind of enemy. He has shown us. He gets thrashed, he goes back to the drawing table. He gets thrashed, he goes back to the drawing table until he finally discovered, make these people forget their culture, disconnect them from their ancestors, and you will control them forever. Aren't they doing that? And pay attention, because I do not want information being misread or misunderstood. I'm only responsible for what I say, Bana people. As a watchman, I'm only responsible for what I say, not how you interpret it. Major events in the history of the Kikuyu in the past beyond 1840 have been forgotten. We shall never know, for instance, what the initiation at the departure of King Gipiti or at the arrival of Kikuyu land was, current day Mount Kenya. However, another system, that of naming ruling generations, I belong to the ruling generation of Mwangi, after every 30 years, gives the precise time that the Kikuyu identify themselves as a unique group in King Gipiti, the same time they left King Gipiti, and the possible time that they arrived in the Mount Kenya area. This is thanks to a list of 9 names, 9 to completion. 999, the number of the creator, Pastor Melo Toko, Bantu King, articulated this, that are repeated in a cycle starting in the days of Pharaoh Tome the third, since the ancient Egyptians used the cycles of the dog star or Cyrus to reckon the 30-year cycle. It should follow that the Kikuyu seers, Aravi, were familiar with stargazing and used the same star to determine the end of the 30-year-old cycle. You want to talk of astrology? That's upon you. But why were the Magi following the star in the east? Why are your pastors telling you your star is not shining? Why are your pastors telling you your star has been stolen? Why the allusion to the star? I shall cover that. Ascending and descending of spirits. You think biblical esoteric knowledge. And it's until we all reach a point of consciousness, we as sons of Muntu, to tip the scales, the balance. 6,000 years. It has been the reign of evil. Yes, the one you call Jehovah, the war God. That is not your creator. That is the one of Israel, the one who wrestles against El. They tell you of this celestial being in the Superman. I will be breaking down the movie Superman. Kal-El, a space traveler, the spirit of Njali who brings salvation to his people. We have had 7 messiahs. We are in the age of the Messiah. Ask Nabi Anata, he will tell you the Messiah is already on the earth. The Messiah is already doing his work on the earth, but you are looking for a person. Good luck with that. The spirit, you cannot contain the eternal spirit in one being. And that is the moment you need to understand. I will also break it down to you, Banabete, because I want you to understand where we were all deceived, where the diversion happens, in the hopes that we can all come back to that point, that cradle, that we can all arise to the primordial consciousness, decalcify, breach Kalunga, and let the spirits of our ancestors now guide us as to the way it should have been. Because they have been given charge over us. Why do you speak of ancestors? When you speak of angels, it's okay. And beings with wings. But when you speak of your grandfather, who rested, who was alive, but rested. You do not believe he continues to have charge over you. You, itunangile, laweza shamba, laweza yote, ngeta. Since the ancient times, King Gipiti used the cycles of the dog star seers to reckon the 30-year cycle. It should follow that the Kikuyu seers, Arathi and Oago, yes, I'm part of that order, it's public knowledge, were familiar with stargazing and used the same star to determine the end of a 30-year cycle. Whatever you decide to think of me, Banabeto, that's entirely up to you. The word Arathi, stargazer, has 3 morphs, Amamundo Mogo. Arathi, see of events to come. How are you able to see events to come? Let me just explain this briefly. We have existed in this realm. The one who was, is, and is to come already knows what was, is, and is to come. So by tapping into my primordial consciousness, I'm able to foresee what was, is, and is to come, not by my power, but by his ngolo for his KEMBO. It's very basic knowledge. Think of it this way, Banabeto. Having a file in your brain that has everything recorded and mapped out, all you need is to pull out files. There's nothing mystical here. We were just taught how to make that connection. Some may call it clairvoyance. Some may... You see, that is what the colonized mind can do, is to try and put a title to the unnamed. And that is why I did the post, how we lost the language. If you're paying attention, Banabeto, reach out, because some of this I cannot teach. I have been trying to upload these videos for as long as I have to keep repackaging these messages, because sometimes I expose too much. And I hope that whatever nuggets I'm trying to help you piece here together, you will see them, because if you look at it from face value, you will not get it. I'm encoding a message in this, Banabeto. Those that have ears will hear. The word Arathi, stargazer, has 3 morphs, a prefix to turn a word into a plural, Ra. Hold your horses. Probably the sun god Ra. But now get this. Ra is not the god. It's the sun god, the one who created the sun. You have to understand. Go back to the post I did, how we lost the language, and understand why these words get lost in translation. And if you choose to understand them from English, then they look so gobbledygook, spooky, mystical. And they're explaining basic concept. The sun, chlorophyll. The sun, vitamin D. You need the sun to synthesize. He travels in a chariot of fire. How much more do you need us to say, Banabeto? He travels in a chariot of fire. I hope your minds are led to the place they were conditioned not to go. It becomes frustrating trying to disseminate this information. But it's also fulfilling, because once you have seen, once you have been given the promise, then it doesn't matter what you face in the path of disseminating this truth. Is there anything better I wish I was doing with my life right now? No. I was born to do this, and I'll do it. And by his ngolo for his KEMBO, let it, if my time comes to sleep with my ancestors, this will be the reason, the truth. The archaic for go among their, which is still used among their Kamba, and in this context, Nenavi. I give the KEMBO to TATA and NZAMBI for allowing me to understand various Bantu languages. Some I did not even know I can speak for this particular reason. Akiaik form, Ninavi, ask any Kamba, they'll tell you. If there's one listening, please comment and confirm this. Ninavi, word go, this form is still used by the Kamba. What they are rather do is korada, to foresee. The correct translation of Aradi in ancient times was those who go with Ra, those who go with the sun, those who go with the times. To foresee, time is measured in what? The sun cycles. A 24-hour cycle. So there's nothing superstitious about this. Our spirituality is all around us, Panabeto. How long shall we emphasize that tree you see, that patch of grass you see, those birds you see in the sky? That's your spirituality. Learn to connect with that. And you will not seek the one who is in us, but yet seems so far. Cognitive dissonance will not allow you to connect, one, with your ancestry. Two, your ancestry shows you the path to your creator. Why? Because they lived more righteous lives than you did. You were deceived that your ancestors were unrighteous. They too were deceived. How righteous can you be when someone is holding a gun to your head? Let's be realistic. We have been allowed powers, but there are rules of nature. There's a balance that has to be kept. And until we reach the tipping point of consciousness and aim, we are at the end of the 6,000 rule, going into the reign of TULENDO, the reign of peace, the return of the Black King. The 14400 did not gather at the base of the mountain. So the elders have not yet opened the scrolls. Are the scrolls there? Yes. Some of the information we have, Banabeto, I guarantee you cannot get from any book. But you will supporting evidence all around you. I beseech you, my people. Kikuyu language, foresee the correlation of Arati in ancient times was those that go with Ra, and since Ra was the sun, nobody worshipped the sun here. Get me right. Riowa, Ri, Ra, Riowa, Ra, Riowa. Again, I refer you to how we lost the language. I know for me, it's easy because I understand the morphology of the Bantu languages. And I try to repackage it. I'm not a teacher, Banabeto. I have no training as a teacher. So I just try to take what is here and bring it to you in the simplest form according to my understanding. And that is why I always welcome questions, because we have to appreciate the fact that we cannot all operate on the same level, but we are headed there. Right. These journeys took place in the sky. The Magi, if you prefer. Allegory, dinner with King Saul and David, when David had to go hide. all these stories. I don't even want to get into the biblical reference of it, because I want to show you that the truth exists void of that book. The culture is in the book, but the book is not the culture. Understand that. Kikuyu language is agglutinative. It has a tendency of forming new words by fusing two or more different words together to give a new meaning, as is seen of all Bantu languages. So when I talk of the Agikoyo, I'm referring to Bantu. Bantu, those belonging to Untu, the cosmic force of creation. Mundu, Muntu. How we lost the language, I've covered that. Consonants and that vibration, it's once we lost the original vibration, that's why you don't see the mystical so deeply. But those of us who have gone to the secret schools are coming into this understanding. Why are the schools secret? Because the information they give Banaveto, vitu nangile, laweza yote, laweza chama. There are private classes I do, and those that attend them know, and they are free. What is freely given to me, freely I give. A group of youths, both male and female, initiated into adulthood, we've covered that. By comparative studies, I was able to see that they fused archaic forms of these words. And these archaic forms of these words, that is why the power in the language, the cosmic vibration was maintained. You know, it's like speaking incantations to words that, how do I explain this? KEMBO, TATA, NZAMBI. It's like having a system that is self-sustaining. You know, you come, adapt the system. You don't know that you're sustaining the system, but the system is self-sustaining. You see, some words were never lost in translation. The meaning, yes, but the vibration, no. THAAYU. Ahkenaten and the Agikoyo people. I told you, let's pay attention to this king. And why? Because we're going to connect, and I'm going to show you why exactly he was the one in Joseph's time. Let's look at the ceremonies. Betroth ceremonies before marriage among the Kikuyu. Kikuyu names for girls and their meanings. The Itweka, a Kikuyu ceremony similar to the Hepse. The Kikuyu were ruled by a generation of elders. When the generation in power reached the age of retirement, the generation in waiting paid fees in goats. And the Itweka ceremony was organized. Yes, you keep blabbing what you want to. Goats will always be. Goats and lambs, because you are a physical being. And get this, you are a physical being. You will never breach the spiritual realms with your word. I tell you that verily. You will never breach the spiritual realm with your words. Your words will be taken by the spiritual realm. They will be activated by the spiritual realm, but you will not communicate with the spiritual realm. And woe unto you if you're praying and your words are taken by a malevolent ndoki, because you're calling on deities whom you have no understanding on, purporting to pray to the one who was, is, and is to come. And then you wonder why there's so much chaos in your life. Why? Because you are told there was a sacrifice of all sacrifices that came in the form of a gay white man who was killed on the kiro or the cross, which the cross only means you have taken life out of the Congo Kiwadu, because life is a circle, eternity. So the Congo Kiwadu has the cross in the middle. So you take out life and you put the cross, you have death. Do you understand what Christianity is? Christianity is death. world religions that rely on the key role without the continuity of the circle of life. In the Congo Kiwadu, I've been doing teachings on this, so I will not dwell deeper, but understand this according to the Congo Kiwadu, which is circular, with the cross in the middle. Now take out the circle, you have the cross. So you take out life, you have the cross. The cross gives you death. Anything that comes from the institution of the Kiro, including this book, which we say, Kiridahu, it is full of abominations, is death. I hope that frees somebody. I hope that frees somebody. Lie. The Kikuyu, waiting, paid in fees and goats, and the Itweka ceremony was organized. We had an Itweka ceremony. This happened every 30 years, a cycle of 9 names, 9 to completion is 10. And I'll show you something. The 10 tribes of Israel. There are 2 others that came, but let's focus on the 10. Those sired of the firstborns in the line of Akuba. Because even if you go to Islam, they talk of Yakuba, the one with the bulbous head. Do your research, Banabeto. Do your research into this. The creation of the Aryan race, Islamic perspective. A cycle of 9 names was used to identify each ruling generation, and since it was a fixed cycle, the generation in waiting knew in advance what their name was. Below is a list of Itweka names. Maadhavi, Shira, Demi, Iregi, which means those that refuse, Demi, those that cut, Shira, the judges, Maadhavi, Maina, those that sing, Mwangi, the wanderers, Shoka, Moirungu, Shoka Moirungu. Shoka means to, Shoka is to return, Moirungu is beneath, or that's where you get Murungu from. And I beseech my Kikuyu elders to explain that, and I will come back with that. Put us down Moirungu as to the alliteration and transliteration. Shororo, Muregaru, Shuma, Manduti. And I wish to advance a theory here of a 10th name, which for some reason is missing. And for some reason, when there's a tribe that misses, I think it's in Revelation, right? There's a tribe that is not mentioned. I hope your mind is led to the place it was conditioned not to go. I can't make this stuff up. Verify, Banabeto, verify. That I'll tell you, you'll arrive to the same conclusion. And perhaps even bring in more nuggets, which I'm welcome. Note that after Mwangi, I'm of the ruling class of Mwangi, the other generations have a different name in brackets. The bracketed names were from the Nyeri Kikuyu, an indication that a separation occurred, but the ceremonies still took place. The law stood, but there was a separation. North, south, you decide. Since each ceremony commemorated an event, the separated groups had as is expected, different experiences and events to name after the ceremonies. So this separation, that's where you find the discord, because we were no longer united. The same thing that is happening. We are speaking the same thing, but we are not united. We are performing the same rites, but we are not united. So it makes it look like it's an entirely different thing. And I give honor to my Nguni brothers in South Africa. I give honor to my people in Zimbabwe for bestowing the title Sekuru to me. In humility, I accept that. There were two names, however, that were generic, meaning that whichever of the 9 names a generation carried from above lists, they also had of the two a sort of surname. A generation was either a Mwangi or a minor, regardless of the real generation name. Now remember, they went to painstaking details to hide their identity. If you go to Elder Kamita, the voice of the 12 elders, he will tell you of the fighting Kabiru and the Ark of the Covenant, and Axum, and Manangi. Why is it that this tribe is speaking of artifacts, and yet the Bible had not come? You decide, Vanabet. You decide. That's the beauty of this awakening. The every dawn comes with a message. You might decide to rise or go back to sleep. The choice is yours. Die. In all probability, the Itueka names were given to the Kikuyu when in Egypt and after departure from Egypt, every 30 years, according to an Egyptian tradition called the Hebsed. This word Hebsed translates to the becoming. In English, the same meaning that Itueka gives in Kikuyu. Wotueka, the breakaway, the becoming. You break away from your cocoon. You break away from the cognitive dissonance. So we are in the age of Tulendo. Are you awake or are you sleeping? Ungubani banabeto. For details on the Hebsed, you can look at Ahkenaten and the Kikuyu people of Kenya, all generations that appear before Mwangi have been listed. Now, something important I also noted, the ruling generations and the Egyptians' connection. Madhavi, this was during the reign of Thomet III. Ma, which means true, is a prefix, and the root is Dhadi for Thoth, justice. Forget about what they've told you or associating this with. No. Every deity is a principle. Have you ever noticed that? Every deity had a principle they regulated. What are the principles of life? Truth, coexistence, justice, the law, the judges, the skills, the balance, the inclination of the soul. And that you have to keep weighing the inclination of your soul in your mind, because that is where the biggest battle is. This is the earliest period in the collective memory of the Kikuyu. Tome, the third, sometimes spelled as Tahutme or Tumosi, was a pharaoh in the 8th dynasty. For the first 22 years of his reign, Tome was co-regent with his stepmother. I don't know how to pronounce those names, so correct me if I'm not from Kingipit. Neither do I speak the tongue of Kingipit. Spelled regent with his stepmother, Hatshepsut, and the first female pharaoh ever. You decide. He is recorded to have ruled between 1504 to 1450 BC. Hatshepsut was also called Makare. Celebrated Ahepset, the equivalent of Itweka, as recorded on an obelisk. It is likely that the 30-year Jubilee celebration merely fell in her reign and was not of her own making, as some Egyptologists have theorized. It is around this time that a group of East African men and women were acquired by Hatshepsut. The women were called the Angoi, an archaic Bantu word for leopard, the leopard people of the Congo. Do your research. They were feared. They came off trees, hunted the Mundele, and made sure he would not. Oh, die. And you still think your ancestors were unrighteous. They fought tooth and nail. And when the Mundele realized he could not win this battle on the ground, he took it to the mind. And that is where we still war. You want to see power. You want to see things unseen. It's only the ancient ways that will connect you. I'm living proof. And whatever you decide is upon you. And I say that with all humility and respect, because Banabeto, if you do not, I cannot show you what you do not want to see. I cannot show you what you wish not to see. I cannot show you what you are not supposed to see. Lie. And I take Bantu word for leopard. Makare had separate other name meant leopard, and it would appear that these women were her property. The men probably took the interim name Maadadi before taking on the name Gikoyo when Tome was in full power. Sycamore was a pharaonic title, besides the fact that sycamores were sacred tree. A sycamore tree is called Mokoyo in Kikuyu. The present Angoi clan of the Agikoyo is also called Aidageni, which is Archaic Kikuyu for those in a foreign land. Adi Ogenine, Adi Ogenine. Now, Banabeto, I pay attention to this particular group because they say, from beyond the rivers of Kush, they will bring my sacrifices. Kirima, the mountain, Kirioma, it has truth. Let us reason together. I give KEMBO to NGAI, MURUNGU, MWENE, NYAGA, for allowing me to have an understanding that I am a branch and my ancestors are the roots. He's the one that nourishes it all. He's the one that keeps it through the cosmic force of creation, the spirit, the Mpego. But to think you can have understanding without connecting to your ancestors. And by to connecting, I just don't mean start talking to them. There are certain rites that have to be done. Do you understand? Rights that predate you, rights that predate that book that has deceived you into thinking that the practice of the white man will connect you to your Most High. Stop playing church, Banabeto. Stop playing. We've just taken what was and given it a new name. We have whitewashed the walls. My people, why is it that you have ears but will not hear? You have eyes but that will not see? But you know the beauty? The truth has never needed defending. It will always defend itself. A psychomotrist is called the Mukyo. The Prince Angoik called Aidageni, which is a Kiaik Kikuyu for those in a foreign land. It is noteworthy that the Kikuyu call a leopard Ngari. Go do research on the leopard people. Please do not just research, and not Ngoi, as do many other Bantu groups. They seem to have adopted the word, the Egyptian word for it. The Madhali generation gave birth to Shira, the judges. When do we see the entry of the judges? After the exit from King Gipiti. THAAYU. This man, Ahkenaten, who was he? Kana, from the Kikuyu word, kanitha, which means mokanidhai, those that have rejected the mercy of the mighty one. Christianity, that's why it's called kanitha. Mukanidhai, those that have refused thai, and that's why we say thai, THAAYU, thai, THAAYU, thai, thai. Yes, power of life and death is in the tongue. So if you don't understand what I just did, I hope that you seek that information. Ahkenaten came to power as the pharaoh of Egypt in either the year 1353 or 1351. This is according to their history books, but I'm just trying to make the connection. And reigned for roughly 17 years during the 18th dynasty of King Gipiti's new kingdom. Ahkenaten became best known to modern scholars for the new religion he created that centered on Athene, the ancient ways. The story is set in the 14th century. Ahkenaten, the pharaoh who appoints Joseph as his vice-regent. Who was the co-regent of Joseph? Who was the co-regent of Ahkenaten, as we had seen, Banabeto? Samenkare. And I'll continue to show you how Samenkare became Joseph. That's the beauty of it. The truth has never needed defending. Joseph is age 28 at the ascension of Ahkenaten, which would mean he was born around 1380 BC in standard Egyptian chronology. And Yakubi in the mid-1420s. Other contemporary rulers mentioned include Tusharata, Supuliuma, a dominant topic is a representation of the last Bronze Age mindset, monotheism. Remember, Joseph taught them of the NGAI of Gisolele. Ahkenaten is famed for bringing monotheism to King Gipiti. Now, enter the Babylonians, and what do? The central notion of underworld and the mythical descent to the underworld, Yakubi's sojourn in Mesopotamia, hiding from the wrath of Esau, is paralleled with Joseph's life in King Gipiti, exiled by the jealousy of his brothers, and on a smaller scale, his captivity in the well. They are further identified with the hell raid of Inanna, Ishtar, and Demeter, that's Sumerian text. The Mesopotamian Tammuz myth, where you get JC from, you see, trying the spirit of Njavi. the messianic spirit, if you prefer, the Jewish Babylonian captivity, as well as the harrowing hell of the one they know as JC. Abana is repeatedly represented as a man who discovered a Hanif, or discover of monotheism. Yes, we know that in the account of Abraham and his brother who never made it down south, Genesis 13. All on his substance went down into the south. Yakubi, as Abana's heir, is charged with further elaborating this discovery. Joseph is surprised to find Ahkenaten on the same path. He was from the south. But the history books will not tell you that. They will not tell you that this Egyptian pharaoh brought back the ways. And once he was gone, those that came, the Hyksos, Mindele, Julius Caesar and group, Ptolemy, Scipio, Africanus, and cohorts, Babylon, the exiles, the seed of Cain, the wanderers, they are cast ones from the island of Pleiades. The genetic malformations, yes, that's all they are. Genetic malformations. If I'm lying, tell them to walk under the sun. Just tell one to walk under the sun. They'll roast like the pork there. Thy, the yangai, thy, the yangai, thy, the yangai, thy. May the word spoken here be sealed for his ngelo, by his ngolo for his KEMBO, to set free the souls of Abantuana Abangone, those without sin, those who have been deceived into believing that they are full of sin. You who was, is, and is to come, the NGAI of my fathers, I beseech you. Wege dhuri kinene, tiwada dawada, okawa kudeni, mahigure maigo, marotajuro hore. Dai, dada yangai dai, dada yangai dai, dada yangai dai. Na kikire nyaga githeru, kirogo wataira, kirogo. Abantuana Abangoni, yes, I hope you can gather from that. As always, I am open to that. If you're interested in knowing as to how you can decalcify your pineal gland, according to the ancient ways, they have been trying to do that with the medicine. That's why you see there's the spinal cord and two snakes trying to crawl up it. You know, that is just a manifestation of the pineal gland. They have sought this information. So that is why when you see the head of the Jesuit order has one on his staff. But see, for us, sons of Muntu, it is encoded in the natural order of our ways by the ngolo of TATA NZAMBI. I will try and do more lessons to disseminate this information. I'm always available on email, yakubibanabantu@protonmail.com, yakubi@bantu-reeducationtv.org to answer your questions. And if you wish for me to get in touch quickly, you may leave your number if you choose to. Then I may call you via Telegram or WhatsApp, depending on the guidance of the Spirit, because I do not just disseminate information because you sent me an email. I have to ascertain who you are and what your intentions are. By the Ngolo and the KEMBO of TATA NZAMBI, I keep asking you, Ungubani, who are you? Know thyself. May we be led to more and more understanding by his Ngolo for his KEMBO. Until next time, Ngweta.